It's run out of options to stay afloat. The debt-trapped airline is said to be contemplating on shutting down operations, at least temporarily, as lenders are yet to transfer the 1,500 crores promised to keep the airline running. This in turn has prompted the Civil Aviation Ministry to start thinking about Jet Airways vacant slots. Joining us now to cover all the angles are Ridhima Saxena, Vishwanath Iyer and Panvi Arora. Ridhima, I'll come to you first. Some hard decisions had to be taken by Jet board today.
While there's still no official confirmation from Jet Airways yet, sources have confirmed that the airline will remain operational for now, but they were expecting an announcement on temporary suspension of operations by this evening. Apart from that, there are presently 7 planes that are operational along the domestic routes, and the international operations continue to remain suspended till Thursday, April 18th. Company spokespersons confirmed to Bloomberg Quint, the company spokesperson that were present here. Apart from that, a source also confirmed to Bloomberg Quint that Jet Airways founder Naresh Goyal, who had put in a bid earlier through his general sales agent Jet Air, along with Future Trend Capital and Adi Partners, all of them have withdrawn their bids. Now, even though the board meeting with the management of Jet Airways concluded around 1 p.m. in the afternoon today, full details of a final resolution plan or even word on temporary suspension of operations, the details of that are yet to emerge, and an announcement may be expected this evening.
Thanks for that, Ridhima. So as of now, remember, the decision will come in the evening today. And today there was also a meeting of the lenders where there was discussion whether the 1,500 crore money that they were looking to infuse into the airline, what's happened with that one. Vishy is joining us with more details on that. Vishy.
Right, Navneet. So 1,500 crore was promised as part of the bank-led resolution plan. Back in March, on the 25th of March, the lenders agreed to infuse that money. As part of that, there were a certain number of conditions. Naresh Goyal stepping down from the board, stepping down from his position as the chairman of the company, which were all fulfilled. The lenders also said that they're going to give this money in a secured format. So as part of that security, they had asked Naresh Goyal as well as Etihad Airways, the international partner, to pledge their equity stake in the company. And only after that will they give out the money. Now, we know that Naresh Goyal has pledged about 26% of his stake with Punjab National Bank. Not sure as much as to what Etihad has done. There has been no announcement. So assuming that they haven't, the lenders have therefore not extended those funds that were originally promised. Important to also notice that when the lenders took this decision to extend that money, it was all under the RBI's February 12th circular, and because the whole plan was prepared because the powers were extended to the banks as to how they can resolve an account. After that, the Supreme Court struck down the circular, so there was nothing offering an immunity to the bankers in the form of, there is a guideline and therefore we are following it. So lenders obviously held back, no pledge, no guideline directing them to do anything. They held back that money. Obviously, that has caused a lot of problems for Jet Airways. They have not been able to pay employees. They have not been able to pay lessors. Planes have been consistently being grounded, and as Ridhima pointed out earlier, only 7 planes are flying at this point in time. Their slots, according to what sources are telling us, are being allotted to other people. There is a conversation at the Civil Aviation Ministry for that. Now, in this current scenario, there is already a bidding process that is going on. Now, according to what our sources are telling us, there are 6 people who have submitted initial interest. Initial interest by no means is an actual bid. It's only
conduct due diligence. And
yes, so it is entirely possible that people who opt in for the due diligence may not actually submit a bid. We don't know what is happening there. The lenders have already extended the deadline for the final submission of bid from the 30th of April to the 10th of May, saying that you have more time to conduct your due diligence, and then accordingly submit the bid. Now, according to what Ridhima was telling us earlier, Naresh Goyal has already opted out of this bidding process. So that, assuming 6 including Naresh Goyal, that leaves about 5 more people in the ring. what we know from our sources is that on Friday, when the EOI deadline passed, just before that, Thursday evening, there was a call from SBI Caps, who's running the entire process, and the bidders, where they explained the current status at Jet Airways, and the bidders have expressed their concerns because they're not sure if they come into the account, if there is anything left to save, if there's anything left to turn around. In all of this uncertainty, without that 1,500 crore, it is unlikely that Jet Airways finds any kind of funds to just remain operational. Now, there is buzz that they are going to temporarily shut down their operations altogether. They've already stopped the international operations, so that is yet to be confirmed. As and when we know, we'll be talking about it. But clearly, for the airline to survive, those funds are necessary, but the banks are not willing to give in. Why? Well, their past experience with these situations have been very, very catastrophic. In 2017, the CBI arrested senior officials at IDBI because they had extended about 900 crore worth of loans back in 2009. That was 10 years ago. And then after that, they were arrested. All of those officials had already retired, but they were all arrested for fraudulently entering this transaction because, according to CBI, the officials did not follow credit guidelines that IDBI has set up. Sure. Obviously, this is playing on the minds of the lenders. Lenders are saying that we're looking for some kind of go-ahead, some kind of clarification from the government, and unless we get that, we are not going to extend those funds.
Will there be any announcement by SBI Caps in the evening today?
We don't know at this point in time whether SBI Caps is going to make an announcement because, according to some of the other news reports, there was a talk about, final bidders who might be interested in the process will be announced, but we're not sure about that yet. As and when the announcements comes, we'll of course know. But the lenders have already said that they're working with the company and they're trying to infuse funds wherever necessary. But 1,500 crores definitely not coming for now.
All right, Vishy, a catch-22 situation.
Very much.
For Jet Airways there. But as Vishy highlighted, just 7 aircrafts have been running. So what does that leave the other slots that have been vacated by Jet Airways, and what is the Civil Aviation Ministry going to do about that? Bhanvi is joining in with more details as to how these additional slots, these 200+ slots that have been vacated by Jet Airways, are going to be distributed, and what is the Civil Aviation Ministry doing about it? Bhanvi.
Yeah, so the government is planning to provide these unused air slots of Jet Airways to other airlines, and for this the aviation watchdog, which is Directorate General of Civil Aviation, it will hold a meeting with the airlines today to discuss the issue. Now Jet Airways has drastically reduced its operations, and it's currently operating only 7 planes. There are a total of 209 airport slots of Jet Airways, and of these 209, we are learning from sources that over 25 unused slots have been given to the other airlines. Now the government has to take a decision on the rest of the slots to be given to other airlines today. There is also a meeting with the aviation secretary with the other airlines today to discuss the matter of airfares and passenger inconvenience regarding Jet Airways. All these issues the government will take a final call on all these issues by Friday today.
Okay. Bhanvi, Ridhima, Vishy, thank you so much for joining in and giving us that perspective. Let's get in some experts now to talk about what could happen. 3 aviation sector experts: former Executive Director at Air India, Mr. Jitendra Bhargava, Mark Martin of Martin Consulting, and Amrit Pandurangi. Gentlemen, all of you, thanks much for joining in. Mr. Bhargava, quick thoughts out here. What happens next? The banks or the lenders, which would have hoped for a higher asset value and hope that they would give the lease line and therefore the company will not go down the NCLT route, have kind of punctured that in between. What does this lead Jet Airways to now?
See, the only thing certain at the moment is that the uncertainty will continue. Now, it's a sad situation that the money is not being put in, something that is desperately needed by Jet. As you very rightly said, there are only 7 aircraft flying, and when you have such a notional presence in the market, it is as good as the shutdown, which is likely to take place this evening. Now, I don't think the banks at this juncture can infuse funds. They have their own problems. Again, your reporter did very rightly said that they can face consequences subsequently if they do a rush job. They are going to be following the system. But this is not something which is desirable in my view. There was a certain pattern that we saw as far as Jet is concerned. Of course, Naresh Goyal could be the first culprit. He dilly-dallied on quitting the board, a condition that was put by Etihad and by the other lenders. If that had happened about 4 months ago, probably things wouldn't have worsened to this extent. But having said this, now what is the way forward is the question that people are going to be looking forward. Now, there are people who have put in their expression of interest. Now, these are not binding. They can be withdrawn. Naresh Goyal also put in his bid. He shouldn't have done something, but he did for whatever reasons. He's been made to withdraw. Now, if Etihad, at least one or two, I'm not being very optimistic also, even if one or two companies which have submitted their expression of interest as serious bidders, the lenders must fast-track the entire action plan. It can't be that I have a timetable till May 31st or April 30th. The need for funding is urgent, emergent, and they must do that. And I only wish, taking care of all the rules, regulations, not to be accused by anyone subsequently. Banks, lenders, they owe it to the public, to the traveling public. Jet has been a good brand. Jet has served the country, the oldest private sector airline. Now you cannot allow, the employees being at risk, the airline being at risk, and what happens to the market dynamics.
Right.
But one thing that needs to be understood very clearly, and I've said this often, that the market dynamics of Indian aviation are such that a full-service carrier is unable to sustain profitable operations because the fares that they command in the market do not adequately compensate for the additional services and amenities they offer to a passenger vis-a-vis a low-cost airlines. Indigo and SpiceJet have expressed publicly that there is a need to increase the fares, but they have not done so.
Yes.
Perhaps because they believe that increase in fares would affect the market growth rate, but so be it. Economic viability of Indian carriers is essential. A balance needs to be struck between ensuring market growth, even if it needs to be simulated through low fares, but it cannot be to such an extent that every few years we see the demise of one airline. Yeah,
we got that, Mr. Bhargava. Lots of moving parts here for Jet Airways. And Mark, I want to bring you in here. I mean, you know, while there has been about 5 expressions of interest, like Mr. Bhargava said, and like we all know, that these are not binding. The deadline has been pushed to about 10th of May. The point here is being, for one of the largest private airliners within the country, is this going to be a hard landing or a soft landing? I mean, we got no indications as of now. Even the 1,500 crores, which probably would have helped keep the company afloat or, you know, live a little longer in peace, has not happened. It's not come through by the lenders.
Hi, thanks for having me on Bloomberg today. You know, let's be very clear. The ones who, the banks, let's understand what was the remit of the bank. The whole idea of SBI was to prevent Jet from crashing. They were mandated to bring in with that objective. The whole intention of SBI was to ensure that they survive. Now, what on earth has happened in the last 3 months? We've seen SBI clean the company, Jet Airways, of its promoter. Now, was that something which was intended, or was that according to plan, or was that proposed from day one? The second part is, if SBI was ideally mandated to help give Jet a second lease of life, help it survive and bring it back on its feet, we have seen no payments being made by SBI towards retaining the fleet or paying off lessors. From 110 aircraft, they're now down to 7. So what has the bank done to keep Jet afloat? Now it just comes more and more clear that SBI's intention was not to save Jet Airways, but more of looking at a stake sale and cleaning off the company of its promoter. I don't think that is anything that anybody in the industry signed up for. So, and now we're moving to the stake sale by banks. You know, even if you want to move to a stake sale, what on earth are you selling? I mean, what part of Jet is saleable today? You have an airline which is down to 7 aircraft. You've lost 120 aircraft over the last 6 months. You've lost all your pilots. Your flight attendants have taken job elsewhere. Engineers have put in the resignation and moving to other organizations. So if you want some, and you know, so clearly there's no value proposition of buying Jet anymore. Today, if you got 10 to 15,000 crores, would you actually buy into someone else's bad mistakes, skeletons in the cupboard, and financial insanity? Or will you put that same money and set up your own airline because the FDI policy allows you 49% and 51% from an Indian entity?
Right.
So, if there's anyone who's kind of, I think we need to be clear, can Jet find a buyer? We've got the bids. I think it's a good thing. The bids are there. But does it really, lucrative?
We'll have to wait for the announcement to come by from SBI Caps, who all were the bidders and who gets to win the bid if there is any qualified bidding which has taken place and if the lenders have approved. But my next question is to Amrit. Amrit, we know by now what has happened, what is unfolding for Jet Airways. Lenders have refused to pump in the additional 1,500 crore which was required. I just want to ask you one question. There are also 20,000 employees there. One of the reports suggested the pilots of the company actually approached Prime Minister Modi to intervene. What's the best case scenario according to you now ahead of Jet Airways?
See, in my view, this is a private company operating in a competitive consumer market. So the government should have as little as possible to do with this entire transaction, including trying to bail out pilots, employees, the company, the banks, anybody. And if they do try to do it, generally they end up messing it further. So the best thing for the government to do is to leave it alone, let the market decide whether the jet company will crash, will have a hard landing, soft landing, whatever, and whether the banks will have a significant loss of dealing with jet. So the government should stay as far away as possible and stick to simple and basic regulatory issues which are already in place from safety perspective and so on, and not allow anybody to violate the regulations or go light on violating the regulations in this scenario. That is from the government perspective. And I think SBI or any of the banks trying to even run the company or take over the company is again another big mistake because none of these people have the ability, the focus or the time to even run a bidding process, let alone run an airline. And therefore, I think the best thing they should do is to quickly conclude the bidding process, choose whoever is the best bidder, and tell that successful bidder to get on with the job of trying to resurrect and help that person through further lending if required, essentially to get back more of their old loans. Not for any other reason, but to say that, look, we have selected you, you have now taken the responsibility of running this airline. There are only 7 aircraft. There are only so many slots available. We will now help you trying to get back, on your feet by getting more slots operational, by getting more aircrafts back from the lessors who have impounded them and so on.
Right.
Till that time, they should really not do anything other than hastening the process of the bidding itself.